Galatians chapter 6 outlines a cold reality. God is not mocked. A person will harvest exactly what they plant. Take the story of Jacob. He was a highly capable young man, but he treated his relationships as cold business transactions to be won. He possessed the specific arrogance of a con artist. He didn't see himself as cruel. He looked in the mirror and saw a shrewd operator, convinced his manipulation was simply a sign of superior wisdom. But treating life as a zero-sum game activates a ledger. When you manipulate the people around you, that ledger eventually balances itself. The first test of Jacob's character arrived when his older brother Esau returned from the wilderness. He was physically broken and collapsing from a lack of food. Jacob saw an opening in his brother's desperation. He offered lentil stew, but the price was Esau's birthright, the claim to the family's future. While the trade was technically legal, Jacob prioritized a tactical advantage over his brother's survival. He walked away from the meal believing he had made a wise investment. However, the birthright was only half the price. The ultimate authority, the patriarchal blessing, was still held by their father, Isaac, now old and blind. Emboldened by his success with the stew, Jacob decided he didn't need to wait for destiny. He would take the family's royal crown through an act of deception. Because Isaac was blind, the transfer of power relied entirely on touch and smell. To pull this off, Jacob had to mimic his brother's physical profile. The technical challenge was significant. Esau was a rugged hunter, while Jacob was smooth-skinned. To a father's touch, the difference was unmistakable. Jacob solved this by covering his arms in scratchy goat fur, providing the false positive to bypass Isaac's verification. The plan worked. Jacob lied directly to his father, who felt the goat fur and irreversibly transferred the blessing. The fallout was immediate. Esau plotted murder, forcing Jacob to flee his home and live the next segment of his life in exile. Jacob had his blessing, but he had lost his family. He was unaware that the long-term cost of that goat fur was already accruing interest. As the decades passed, the exact methods Jacob used in his youth began to dismantle his own life. He became the target of the exact deceptions he had once pioneered. His employer, Laban, used a bait-and-switch trick to swindle Jacob out of his wages and his chosen bride, Rachel. The master trickster was now trapped in someone else's scheme. This family tree shows the result of that initial fraud. Jacob's home became a divided household defined by infighting. In his old age, Jacob's favoritism toward Joseph created a rift. The older brothers viewed their younger sibling as a threat to be removed. The manipulation Jacob used to secure his own future had become the standard operating procedure for his children. Eventually, the brothers sold Joseph into slavery. To hide the crime, they needed a story their father would accept without question. They used Joseph's recognizable coat of many colors as the central prop for their lie. They dipped the coat in the blood of a goat and presented it to Jacob, convincing him that his son had been killed by a wild animal. Jacob's rise began with the touch of goat fur. His old age was defined by the sight of goat blood. Jacob spent years in grief, deceived by his children in the same manner he had once deceived his father. In this ledger, the specific tactics used to get ahead eventually provide the blueprint for the final harvest.